I'm your host, BrightLearn, and today we're unpacking a fascinating and intense interview that's been making waves. It's a conversation that's equal parts thought-provoking, controversial, and honestly, a little mind-blowing. So, buckle up, because we're about to dive into a discussion that covers everything from geopolitics to faith, from the end times to the role of Zionism in global power structures. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. The interview features Rick Wiles, the founder of TruNews, sitting down with Mike Adams of Brighteon. Now, if you're not familiar with Rick Wiles, he's been in the alternative media space since 1999. Yeah, before podcasting was even a thing. He's known for his unapologetic takes on some of the most controversial topics of our time, and this conversation is no exception. It's a deep dive into the intersection of faith, politics, and prophecy, and it's packed with insights that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew. Let's start with the big picture. Rick and Mike kick things off by reflecting on their journeys in alternative media. Both have been in the game for decades, weathering censorship, threats, and the ever-changing landscape of independent journalism. Rick points out that staying in this space is no small feat. It's a constant battle against forces that want to silence dissenting voices. But what keeps him going? His 10 grandchildren. He's fighting for their future, a future he fears will be far darker than the America he grew up in if the current trajectory of society continues. It's a sobering thought, and it sets the tone for the rest of the conversation. From there, the discussion shifts to Bible prophecy, specifically the concept of the beast, described in the book of Revelation. Rick breaks it down in a way that's both accessible and deeply thought-provoking. He explains that the beast isn't some mythical sea monster, but rather a system that rises from humanity itself. And here's where it gets really interesting. Rick speculates that this beast system could be global Zionism. Now, before you jump to conclusions, he's quick to clarify that he's not talking about Judaism or Jewish people as a whole. He's talking about Zionism as a political and ideological movement, one that, in his view, seeks to control nations, resources, and even the way people think. Mike chimes in with his own perspective, pointing out how even figures like Donald Trump and RFK Jr. seem unwilling to criticize Israel, despite its controversial actions in places like Gaza and Lebanon. Rick takes it a step further, arguing that Zionism is rooted in a deeply racist ideology, one that claims divine right to land and resources, often at the expense of others. He pulls no punches, calling out Israeli leaders for their rhetoric and actions, which he believes are in direct contradiction to the teachings of Christ. But here's the kicker. Rick believes that many Christians are blind to this contradiction. He argues that Christian Zionism, a belief system that aligns Christian theology with Zionist goals, has become an idol for many believers. Instead of focusing on the teachings of Jesus, they've elevated Israel to a place of worship, justifying actions that go against the very principles of love, mercy, and justice that Christ preached. It's a bold claim, and one that's sure to spark debate. The conversation then takes a turn toward end times prophecy. Rick and Mike discuss how some Zionists, both Jewish and Christian, are actively working to accelerate what they believe are biblical prophecies, like the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Rick calls this DPP-zism, a term he coined to describe a theology that combines dispensationalism, premillennialism, pre-tribulation rapture beliefs, and Zionism. He traces its origins back to John Nelson Darby, a 19th century theologian who, according to Rick, may have drawn some of his ideas from seances held in his family's haunted castle. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a wild story, and Rick lays it all out with the kind of detail that makes you go, wait, what? From there, the discussion moves to global conflict, specifically the role of Israel in geopolitics. Rick and Mike touch on the 1967 attack on the USS Liberty, an American surveillance ship that was allegedly targeted by Israel in a false flag operation, meant to draw the U.S. into war. Rick believes this is just one example of how Israel operates, using deception and manipulation to further its agenda. He also warns of the potential for more false flag attacks, particularly in the lead-up to elections or major geopolitical events. But it's not all doom and gloom. Rick ends the conversation on a hopeful note, emphasizing the importance of faith and the need to focus on what truly matters, our relationship with God. He shares his vision of going to Gaza, after the war, to help rebuild and care for the children who've been caught in the crossfire. It's a powerful reminder that, no matter how dark things may seem, there's always room for compassion and redemption. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? For me, it's a call to discernment. In a world where information is weaponized and truth is often obscured, we need to be vigilant about where we place our trust. Whether it's in politics, media, or even our own faith, we have to ask the hard questions and seek answers that align with our values. And above all, we need to remember that our ultimate allegiance isn't to any nation or ideology. It's to the principles of love, justice, and truth that transcend them all. All right, Bright Learners, that's it for today's episode. If this conversation sparked something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, share this episode, and let's keep the discussion going. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep seeking the truth. This is BrightLearn signing off. Catch you on the next one.
This has been a BrightLearn.ai summary of an interview between Rick Wiles and Mike Adams on November 2nd, 2024. The full interview is available at Brighteon.com, where you can also find podcasts and special reports by Mike Adams and other creators. Visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage of this interview and breaking news on critical stories that will keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.